What's going on, everyone? Ash here, and it's time for another GameXplain Game & Watch. Today we're going to take a look at the brand new Nintendo Switch version of the Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack, which actually comes out today. So if you like what you see, you can go ahead and get it right now if you want. So essentially, I've already played both of these games to death back on the 3DS, and I actually even reviewed the original version of Azure Striker Gunvolt 2. So if you want kind of a deep dive into the gameplay mechanics and to kind of get a sense of how I feel about the games themselves, I encourage you to check out that review. That's kind of more of a deep dive into the gameplay mechanics and the story and, you know, everything about the game and just kind of a more comprehensive overview. For this Game & Watch, I'm going to mostly focus on the things that are new about the Switch version of the Striker Pack. So, you know, I'll explain things as I go, but I do encourage you to go check out my Gunvolt 2 review if you want to kind of get a deeper dive into the games. And you can find a link to that in the video description below. So, without further ado, let's get started. So here you can see from the main title screen, we get a choice between both games in the series, Gunvolt 1 and Gunvolt 2. There's some options here. I'll show you. You can set the level of the HD rumble. I prefer mine to be strong. And you can set the language independently for each game, which is kind of cool, if, you know, that matters to you. So, it's pretty cool. There's a manual. But I'm going to go ahead and get us started with the first Gunvolt game. So you got a cool little wallpaper there, loading screen. Alright, here we go. Let's get started. So, one thing I'm going to talk about, well, let's first go over these. Just so you know, other game modes, you get easy mode and hard mode. So for those of you who want a different difficulty level, you have some options. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to load my save file here. And I'm just going to kind of show off the, I'm going to show off the opening level here. I'm just going to replay it. So one of the first things I want to go over, for returning fans, for people who are familiar with Gunvolt, one thing that is new in the Switch version of the Striker Pack is kudos are basically a score multiplier in Gunvolt, and Gunvolt 2 introduced three ways you can choose to get kudos. And that was a much better system than the single option that was in the first game. Much fairer, much more balanced. And so, you know, I think Inti Creates knew that, and so they actually retroactively added the Gunvolt 2 kudos system back into Gunvolt 1. So, I mean, for that reason alone, that's already the best version of the game, in my opinion. I'm going to go with cautious. That's fine. And let's go. So that's just something for returning fans. That won't mean as much to you if you're a newcomer, but just know that it's better than what was in the original version of the first game. So first thing you'll notice here with the opening cutscene is we've got high-definition event cutscenes and high-definition character portraits, text, very cool looking. I really enjoy the presentation, or at least this aspect of the presentation. It's not all great, as I will explain to you in a little bit, you'll see. But generally, I love the event scenes. They look great in HD. I'm not going to spend too much time on the dialogue. But I do want to say, though, the localization is actually very good. The dialogue in these games is very punchy, has a lot of personality. Every character kind of stands out in their own way. Even though Gunvolt 1 doesn't have voice acting like Gunvolt 2 does, the text really still does kind of sell each character, and it's a really good aspect of these games. And of course, another thing too, Gunvolt loves his dramatics, and it's a very anime game. Like, you can't get much more anime than this game, and you know, just know what you're getting into. Obviously, you know, I love that kind of stuff because I appreciate it for what it is. But some people really can't deal with, you know, that kind of over-the-top anime style. So, just so you know, you can skip these story cutscenes. You know, you're not forced to click through them. You can even turn off the story scenes altogether if you want, and you know, not even see them at all. And that's great for repeat runs. Like most platformers, Gunvolt has a ton of replayability. You'll be replaying levels for better times, to get materials, and to, you know, level up and get more experience. So the levels are very replayable. You know, you'll be playing through these stages many times. So I'm gonna juice up the elevator here. So essentially the way Gunvolt works, the way he plays, it's obviously based on Mega Man, and these are the same people who made the Mega Man Zero and the ZX games. So the physics are very similar, you can tell. But Gunvolt works differently. So instead of just, you know, shooting enemies to damage them or destroy them, like Mega Man would, Gunvolt actually, he tags enemies with these bullets first, and the bullets themselves actually do very little damage. But once you tag enemies with bullets, you can then deploy what's called the flash field, which is this really cool-looking, blue field here. And anything tagged, when you deploy the flash field, starts taking crazy damage. And that's kind of how Gunvolt works. The only limitation on this power is that EP bar you see underneath him, and if it runs out, Gunvolt will overheat temporarily, and you're kind of a sitting duck. He can't do much, so generally you kind of want to manage your EP on the fly. It does automatically regenerate, but if you don't want to wait for that, you can just double tap down and regenerate on the fly whenever you want. So there's a lot of finesse to the game. You can brute force your way through, especially by leveling up. You don't have to be an amazing player to beat the game, but it is a game that rewards high execution. It just makes you feel really cool for being good at it. So that is something I really like about it. It's a fun game to watch someone be good at. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that's me. So as you saw, the kudos I've been collecting, those get cashed in every time you hit a checkpoint. So sometimes you might want to skip a checkpoint to keep your score multiplier going, sometimes you may not. It's kind of a risk-reward system in that way. But to get back to the graphics for a second, so the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that the game is now 60 frames per second. Gunvolt 1 and 2 on the 3DS were both 30 frames, and they look great, and the stereoscopic 3D looked especially awesome. But, when you're playing a platformer, you typically don't want 30 frames per second. And I have to say, the jump to 60 frames per second alone makes such a huge difference in these games, and in my opinion makes these the definitive version of the games by itself. I mean, just being able to play these games on a giant TV screen or on the Switch's beautiful screen itself, these games look better than ever, and the jump to 60 frames really cannot be overstated, just how much it makes these games even better. And I already like these games, so it's making great games even better, in my opinion. But what I do want to note is that there are aspects of the presentation, or the visual presentation, that are very uneven. So the graphics generally look great, in my opinion, but if you go to the menus, you'll notice that there's a huge disparity between, some of the assets. So, like, for example, Recharge Lens and Duple Boost Band Plus, those are all high definition, they look good. And even the little tabs up here look okay, but then the other text, like Escape and Left Eye, Right Eye, Ring, and the Experience indicator down here, they're all incredibly blurry, and it just doesn't look good. It's a very uneven, it just feels like a half-step presentation almost. I mean, God, look at that. Look at Jump. I mean, you got the B button, which looks fine, but then Jump looks really pixelated and not at all optimized for HD displays. So that I do find to be kind of a shame, I have to say. I wish that wasn't the case. It just feels like they could have gone a little further with the high definition presentation. And as you'll notice, I'm not complaining about the textures or the actual in-game assets here. Like, obviously, you can see this is based on a 3DS game, but I still think the game looks great on a TV. I think it looks even better on the Switch's screen, so I'm not complaining about that. It's specifically the text, the uneven, kind of the inconsistent text and user interface elements that kind of bug me. But then, then you've got these high-definition screen-filling special attacks, but again, see, the text is blurry, but, the art is high-definition, and the special effects are high-definition. So it's just a very strangely inconsistent presentation, but generally, the game looks great, and, I'm not going to complain too much about text being low-res, but I do think that more could have been done here to kind of standardize the presentation across the board. So that's, that's kind of a disappointment, but, ultimately it is kind of a minor factor, especially given all the other things that have been improved about the games. Again, I mean, 60 frames per second by itself is a game changer for this series. And I'm not one of those people who's always going to be like, 60 frames per second has to be, it's always better. It's not necessarily, but for platformers, it generally does make a difference, in my opinion. And that is borne out here as well. Alright, so that's Gunvolt 1's opening stage. I kind of wanted to just give you a quick overview of kind of how the game looks on Switch and how it runs, and also how Gunvolt plays, and kind of how he's different from Mega Man. So, yeah, that is the opening stage. There we go. Looks like a pretty decent rank. Ooh, I got an A. Okay, Fair enough. So the thing about when you finish stages, you get bonus tries for this little lottery here, and this is where you get materials to synthesize new equipment and accessories and things. And sometimes you'll get rare stuff, sometimes you'll get not so rare stuff. It looks like I didn't do great that round, but that's all right. So yeah, and then those materials I got, you can synthesize them at the gear shop here. I don't really need anything at the moment. But just kind of showing that off. Yeah, there are challenges here too. The way challenges are handled in this game is not quite as good as the second game, but you know, they're still pretty cool. But again, I'm not going to go too in-depth into the game here for this game or into the games. I'm more going to be focused on, again, what's different with the Switch version. You know, but if you already like what you see, then it's just more of it, basically. So, okay. Anyway, one of the unfortunate things about this Switch version of the pack is that it doesn't seem like there's any way to switch from Gunvolt 1 to Gunvolt 2 without backing out of the game entirely. I have not found a way to do that, if there is a way. So, I'm going to go ahead and just back out to my Switch menu here, close it. It is kind of an oversight. I do wish there was a way to back out to the top menu and switch games, but you know, perhaps Inti Creates didn't think that people would necessarily want to do that all that much, or I don't know. But it does feel like kind of a missed opportunity there. Alright, so now I'm going to play Gunvolt 2, and the thing about Gunvolt 2 is it added a brand new playable character, and that is Copen, Gunvolt's rival. So I'm going to show him off a bit, kind of show off what he can do. He plays completely differently from Gunvolt. So let's go to story mode here. Let's see. I'll just pick my first file, that's fine. Load this save data, and so yeah, every time you load your save data, you get a chance to play, you know, choose between Gunvolt or Copen, and you can kind of advance their stories side by side, which is pretty cool, in the same file. So for now, I'm going to show off Copen, because you've seen Gunvolt. So, let's go to the Prism Highway. I like this level. Yeah, I don't need to show off this stuff yet. So yeah. Okay, let's go to the Prism Highway level. Conversation's on. Cool, let's do it. So, Copen plays completely differently from Gunvolt, and he's, in a way, or in many ways, more technical in my opinion, but I don't know, I personally don't find him as fun to play as, but a lot of people find him more fun and kind of consider him to be like the coolest part of this game, and, you know, that's fine. The thing about Copen is that to lock on to enemies, he actually has to dash into them. So like that. And he can air dash up to 3 times, more, depending on if you get equipment later in the game. So instead of tagging enemies with bullets like Gunvolt does, he actually dashes into them. And when you lock onto an enemy like that, it basically allows Copen to unleash all sorts of crazy, screen-filling special attacks that do a lot of damage. So I'm not exactly showing him off perfectly here. I'm, you know, not as good with Copen as I am Gunvolt. I just never quite, I don't know, I never quite warmed up to him as much. I also just don't like him as a character. He's such a jerk. I'm not going to go too much into the story here, just because, you know, I want you guys to experience it for yourself. It's a fun anime story. It's very schlocky, kind of tropey, but, you know, it's fun. It's, you know, you just kind of have to take it at face value for what it is. There are a lot of, you know, weird anime terms, and, you know, it's just a very anime platformer story, but it's fun. And, you know, it's got great production values. It's just, you know, it's fun to kind of lose yourself in. So again, like Gunvolt, Copen can recharge his bullets by tapping down whenever you want, basically. So bullets basically determine how many times you can air dash, up to 3 times by default. So you want to keep your bullets kind of filled up whenever you can. So again, there's an element of energy management on the fly, which I enjoy. And what's also cool too is that Copen can automatically vertically dash up walls like that, which I think is pretty cool. So, you know, once you get into a groove with Copen, he is very fun. But I just kind of feel like he's less consistently fun than Gunvolt. But he does have more options, so it just kind of depends on your playstyle. There we go. Oh, and I do, so the thing about Copen is that, kind of like Mega Man, he can change his weapons. He's got EX weapons, and that basically, what I just did, I pressed the shoulder button. And right now I've got a lightning EX weapon, which is what I've been using. But if I tap the shoulder button, I've got a kind of this yellow. It's actually based on hair. It's based on a boss whose special ability has to do with her hair. So that's kind of why that's like that. And I think I have one more too. Yeah. I have this crystal-like. Alright, keep going. Yeah, so I got this crystal power right now. But I'm actually going to keep using... Oh, watch out. Yeah, I actually kind of want to keep using the lightning one because I find it to be one of the best. At least for out of the ones I have so far. Again, I've beaten these games before on 3DS, but so I kind of know what to expect. Alright. Whoa. That was very sloppy. Okay. There we go. Oh wait, I didn't want to do that. So what's kind of weird about Copen is that even though his gameplay is generally more technical, I actually found bosses to be kind of brain dead with him because he can just, you know, you just air dash into the boss and keep firing all your weapons and recharging your bullets and kind of rinse and repeat. And of course you do have to dodge to a degree, but you know, the pre-evasion ability, which kind of basically lets you dodge any attack as long as you have EP to expend, makes it easier to kind of just brute force your way through boss fights without finesse. But it's harder to do that as Gunvolt. So I feel like Copen paradoxically almost requires less skill when it comes to the bosses. It's kind of weird. But like when it comes to traversing stages, it's, you know, he's definitely more technical. So I wanted to show off this stage because it's got kind of a cool, you know, motorcycle segment that kind of reminds me of the Ride Chaser segments from the Mega Man X games. Yeah, it kind of just reminds me of that. I thought it was pretty cool. That. And by the way, just like in Gunvolt 1, you can, you know, turn off these conversations. You can, you know, you can customize the conversations in any way you want, essentially, so you don't have to have them on the screen. You don't have to have the portraits on the screen. I can even show that off if you want. This is actually something they added as DLC to the 3DS version, I believe, and it's included here. If you go to Story Mode Plus settings, you can you know, turn the voices on or off. You can turn the window opacity up or down, things like that, so you can kind of see that there. It's going to keep it on 4. But yeah, so that's kind of something that lets you further customize your UI. Watch out. God, I keep getting hit. Ah. Alright. So, one of the reasons I wanted to show off this stage is just to highlight how fun some of the bosses can be, and how... This guy is obviously very obnoxious, but I think he's very endearing. And of course, the addition of voice acting, that was something else I should mention. Gunvolt 2 has voice acting, where the first one did not. So that adds even more kind of personality to the characters, and the characters already had a ton of it. So, you know, as you'll see in this boss fight, I really enjoy kind of the over-the-top anime personalities of these bosses. I won't spend too much time on the dialogue, just because, you know, want to keep things going. Though these animations are so Mega Man Zero. I love it. So some of the other stuff included in the Switch version, there's some new music, stuff you wouldn't necessarily really notice unless you're, you know, a returning fan, but it's still cool that it's here. You know, I appreciate that, of course. Oh, watch out. I love the dialogue. I mean, Copen's kind of a jerk, but I do like the way he reacts to the bosses, because they're often just ridiculously annoying. I'm gonna try to finish him off with my cool-looking full-screen special here, if I can. Dancing flea. Yeah, so Copen is pretty much, he's kind of just like a religious zealot. He drives me crazy, but, you know, I do appreciate that he adds a completely different element of the story, you know, side of the story, and a completely new playstyle. See, look at that. That's really cool looking. I appreciate that. Watch out. Oh, that was weird. Okay. A little bit of slowdown there. I don't think I've ever seen that while playing. So I'm glad I was able to document it for you here so you can kind of see that there appears to be, you know, let's go ahead and do my special attack. There appears to be, you know, random stuttering some of the time. Nice. Got him. And I leveled up, so cool. Yeah, so that's Copen. That's kind of how he plays. He is, you know, he has a whole side brand or unique side of the story in Gunvolt 2. So essentially, where Gunvolt 1 is kind of a longer game focused on Gunvolt, maybe 8-ish hours, 8 to 10 hours your first time through, I would say. Gunvolt 2 is a shorter experience for both characters. So I would say Gunvolt 2, Gunvolt and Copen's story take about, I don't want to say 4 to 5 hours each. And that was something I complained about in my original review. I actually did kind of prefer the more kind of consolidated focus on one character in the first game. Oh, I got some rare stuff. Nice. Nice. Oh, I'm glad that came up. So one of the things that was improved in Gunvolt 2 is the way the challenges are handled. So you can attempt challenges before each stage, and if you complete them, you'll get extra rewards. In Gunvolt 1, you had to select challenges before you could actually attempt them. So if you didn't select it, it wouldn't count even if you actually, you know, achieved it during your stage. That's no longer true in Gunvolt 2. So if you you know, meet a challenge's requirements, you get the reward automatically, which I always like. So that's one of the. It would have been nice to see them retroactively kind of change, you know, put the second game's challenge system in the first game, kind of like they did with the Kudo system. But oh well, what are you gonna do? So I'm going to go ahead and save. I guess I can show off really quick. You can synthesize items for Copen as well. I don't know if I have anything. I don't have the right materials yet. The way Copen works, though, you can basically, here's kind of his EX weapons, but again, there's that inconsistent presentation again. Look at those really ugly, kind of like pixelated low-res graphics, but, you know, then other stuff looks fine, so it's very strange. So you can essentially equip, you can basically equip abilities to cope the memory of Copen's suit, and you can expand that memory by finding certain pickups in the stages. And so, you know, he's a little different than Copen, or than Gunvolt. Copen also only ever has 2 skills. He can't learn new skills like Gunvolt, so he only ever has this Shred Storm, full screen attack, and the healing thing. So, you know, he's different, in some ways more basic, but in other ways more complex. So anyway, let's go ahead and save. And as my last thing, I'm actually going to back out again. Because again, I don't think I can switch files without like closing the game and going back in, unless I'm missing something, which is possible. But I'm actually going to go back into Gunvolt 2 and play as Gunvolt one more time to show off a particular stage. And the reason I'm going to show off the stage is not only does it look cool, but it has one of my favorite bosses in the entire series. And this boss is very emblematic of how fun I think the personalities can be in this game, and just how strong the localization is, in my opinion. And those of you who are already Gunvolt fans may know exactly where I'm going with this. Alright, let's select my file again. Okay, Gunvolt. And I'm going to go to the data facility. So, Gunvolt in Gunvolt 2 pretty much plays the same as he did in Gunvolt 1. I mean, there really isn't very much change there. I believe maybe he has a few new abilities that he learns from leveling up, like the full screen, you know, special attacks, but generally, he plays the same, and I enjoy that. There's just something very, I don't know, there's something very satisfying about playing as Gunvolt. Like, he feels very powerful, and I like the way, not only do his attacks look cool, but the characters in the game react to him as if he's like a legend, as if he's like, oh, whoa, you're the Azure Striker, I should be scared of you, I've heard about your power. So, you know, even though this game can be very difficult, like a lot of platformers of this type, it's not difficult because you feel weak compared to everything else. It's just difficult because everything can fill the screen with, like, you know, crazy attacks, but so can you. So here's this guy. I'm just going to let you guys read his dialogue as I talk. But so, you know, I get there are probably going to be some people in the comments who are like, oh, this is so, like, silly and dumb and, you know, low-hanging fruit. Whatever. I think this is fun. And it's very clear that a lot of effort was put into the localization. Like, there's a ton of personality. You know, it obviously uses a lot of, like, leet speak, and, you know, this guy's a hacker, so he's very much a stereotypical, you know, he uses leet speak and hashtags in his speech, and it's a lot of fun, I think. So that's kind of why I wanted to show this off. And those of you who have played Mighty Gunvolt Burst may actually recognize not only this, or elements of this stage, but the music as well. Alright, there we go. Watch out. I want to recharge my EP there. So what I was saying before was that just, yeah, like, Gunvolt feels very powerful. His flash field just, it looks cool. It fills the screen. Things take a lot of damage from it. It's just, yeah, like, Gunvolt feels strong, and I like that. Oh, let's not mess with that. And again, like, a lot of the characters react to him like, oh, wow, you're the Azure Striker. Like, yeah, so the game is challenging, but it's because everything is powerful, not because you're weak, which I think is pretty cool. Oh, I overheated. No. Let's get away. So that's what happens when you overheat. You can't really do much until you're... I don't need that metal over there. You can't really do much until Gunvolt's EP recharges, so... Watch out. And just, you know, just jumping around feels great, just maneuvering. Like, the physics feel great, again, very much like Mega Man Zero, and just the controls are very responsive. And that's actually something I should talk about. This game feels amazing to play with the Switch Pro controller. For those of you who played the original 3DS versions, you may remember that, you know, the games did control well, but the 3DS itself wasn't really built for really long, intense play sessions. So, you know, by the end of a, you know, Gunvolt requires a lot of, you know, input and skill from the player generally. So, you know, after a couple of hours playing Gunvolt in the 3DS, you're, you know, holding, your hands are all contorted and you're holding the 3DS in like this claw-like grip, and it's awful. So, and it's not really the game's fault, it's really just something, you know, it's more to do with the 3DS's design. But, you know, it's really nice that you don't have to deal with that anymore with the Switch Pro controller. And that's actually, I would say, one of the quieter, best things about this version is just how much better it feels to play, just because you can use a regular controller and not the 3DS. And, you know, hey, all love to the 3DS. It's been a great system. Love it. But it can get very uncomfortable to play after extended periods, especially when you're playing intense games. They kind of make you tighten your grip. So, as I'm sure you can see, I'm not exactly playing... Oh, no! Ah! Again, I overheated. Not playing great, but doing my best here. Look. So the thing about these platforms, it makes them tricky. You know, I better... There we go. So the blue ones activate while your flash field is active. The red ones disappear while your flash field is active, so it makes it a little tricky. I wonder what we're going to find up here. Let's see. There's nothing but an exit sign. That's why I wanted to come up here. Hashtag Pwn. Like, it's so stupid, but at the same time, it's fun. And it has so much personality, and I like that a lot more than a game where you can clearly tell not very much effort went into the localization. So I wanted to show that off specifically because Teseo is such a troll. Yo, GD, I hear you shacked up with a human. He's so crass, it's great. Yeah, so now you've got these platforms that kind of appear next to each other, where they're kind of they're activated the opposite way, so it's a little tricky, but it's fun. So yeah, just kind of some whatever, like some miscellaneous other things that are added to the Switch version. Like I said, there's extra music. As I understand it, there are certain gameplay balances and improvements. I think that mostly means stuff I was talking about, like the Kudo system being integrated into, or Gunvolt 2's Kudo system being integrated into Gunvolt 1. So I think that's generally what it means. But yeah, also, for those of you who are returning fans, it is worth mentioning that All the DLC is included. Kind of like the recent Mega Man Legacy Collection 2, you get all the DLC for both games built into this collection. So you are, you know, really getting the definitive versions of these games in lots of ways. And that's just really kind of what I have to conclude, is that these really are the best versions of these games. If you're coming into this series as a newcomer, I have to recommend the Switch version. You know, you can play it on the go, obviously, you can play it on your TV. Yes, the uneven presentation is a bit of a shame, you know, and other certain things like having to back out of the game to switch between Gunvolt 1 and 2, that feels silly. But I mean, those are minor problems compared, watch out. Like, those are relatively minor compared to, you know, 60 frames per second, you know, the Switch Pro controller, or, you know, even playing with any controller that's not the 3DS. Even the Joy-Cons feel, or the Joy-Con feel fine for this game. So, they don't feel as good as the Switch Pro controller, but they still feel good. So, I think that's pretty key. Oh, watch out. There we go. Yeah, so I mean, it really, in many ways, it's true. These are the kind of definitive versions of these games, and as someone who's played with 3DS originals, if you're looking to get into this series, I have to recommend the Switch version. It's great. I believe I gave Gunvolt 2 a like it a lot, I believe. I know I would have given a Gunvolt 1 a like it a lot. And Gunvolt 2... Oh, by the way, you might, for those of you who care about the story, don't read the dialogue here. There's not a whole lot I can do about it. I was trying to be spoiler sensitive, and I will continue to be, but not a whole lot I can do about that. So, you know, if you care, don't read the dialogue there. But that's the only major spoiler you're going to see in this whole thing. And I'm almost done anyway, so... so now, the other question, is it good for newcomers? Is it good for returning fans? I already answered, is it good for newcomers? Yes, this is the best version of these games, in my opinion, despite some of the presentational issues. But for returning fans, is it worth a $40 purchase? Well, that depends on the fan. I mean, I would double dip on these games because I think they're very good, and they're made even better here. But, you know, $40, that's not insignificant, and these are two relatively short games. They're short. They're very replayable. It just depends on how you feel about that. If you're into short, replayable experiences, you can't go wrong with Gumbel. And if you like platformers at all, I mean, I highly recommend you play this anyway. But, you know, if you're concerned that the games are too short, you know, for $40, I get that too. But really, that kind of gets away from my whole point about returning fans. So, you know, if it's been long enough for you since you played them and you want to play them again, I can't recommend the Switch version enough. But it has, you know, it's worth mentioning that there isn't that much new here for those of you who have played both games before, like I have. I mean, for me, the improvement to 60 frames per second and kind of the other quality of life fixes and HD rumble and things like that, I think it's worth it. That makes it worth it for me, and just the ability to play it on my TV. You know, I appreciate that. So I think it's worth double dipping, but it's worth noting that you're not getting a lot new here if you're a Gumbel veteran. So, you know, keep that in mind. What am I doing? Why didn't I? Oh, I should have been attacking him. Watch out. So, yeah, as I said, this game can get pretty intense with all these screen-filling attacks, but it's a lot of fun. Let's heal real quick. Okay. And here comes Tesseo's ultimate attack. Impregnable Fortress. See, it's so Dragon Ball Z. It's so, I love it. It definitely scratches that itch for, you know, that kind of like hyper flashy anime style platformer. Oh, I get open. I definitely overheated. Alright. Watch out. Should be almost done. Got him. So yeah, I wanted to show off that stage because I really just like Tesseo as a character. His dialogue's great. And yeah, so that's really kind of everything I wanted to show off. I mean, I could show off more, but I don't want to spoil too much of the game for those of you who intend to go out and play it. Yeah, I think I've gone over really everything there is to go over. You know, there are probably a few minor differences I haven't mentioned, but, you know, again, stuff like new music and, you know, kudos from the second game being put into the first game and other general improvements. But the main one, again, is the kick up to 60 frames per second. It looks fantastic, especially if you've seen the 3DS version. It's like night and day in terms of the frame rate, of course. And, you know, the HD assets, when they're used, look great. I just wish they were used more across the board. But, you know, I don't know if we're going to get to do a full review of this game. I might, but if not, I would say that, you know, my feelings on this game land very close to like it a lot. I mean, these are two great games that really have never looked better, despite some of the imperfections, and they really have never played better. So if you're going to get into the Gunvolt series, this is the way to do it, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. So again, it comes out today. If you like what you see, you can go check it out. And that's it for me today. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on social media. You can find all the links you need in the video description below. Otherwise, keep it on GameXplain for more on Azure Striker Gunvolt, the Nintendo Switch, and all things gaming. Until next time, guys, bye!